Hello everyone, welcome back. So this video is going to be a little bit rambly. I didn't write out talking points. This is me just kind of talking about Santa Muerte and alternate timelines and kind of my perception of them. It is a little bit all over the place, but stay with me if you want to hear what I have to say. I always heard of alternate timelines. We hear jokes about it online saying that are we in the worst timeline, but I never had any concrete proof of an alternate timeline. These are just things that people were, proposing. These are just theories that scientists were saying were true. And it wasn't until I started working with Santa Muerte that she showed me and let me know about an alternative timeline. So apparently my mom, I guess we could say, she remarried after I was born. Shortly after I was born, I was about 2 weeks old. She got with someone else, and I had a lot of younger siblings because of that. And but we had a very troubled life, and there was a lot of poverty, a lot of struggle, and a lot of strife, and it was just very tumultuous upbringing. But I was shown an alternate timeline where my mother never remarried, and it was just me and my older sister. And in this alternate timeline, we lived in a nice house. My mother had a high position at a restaurant. She had a really good job. We lived very comfortably. Life went completely differently. My childhood was pretty much depleted of all of its trauma. And I thought that was so fascinating to see that there's a version of events that played out where I wasn't traumatized from a young age. Now, later on, I learned about an aspect of hers, the aspect that combines the red, the black, and the white. And what I channeled about this aspect, my own personal gnosis, is that this aspect has dominion over the timelines. She sees all the different timelines. She sees them from beginning to end. She sees how they play out. And when you're a devotee and you work with this aspect, she can kind of tell you about different timelines. And she also, through her seeing into different timelines, she can see where you might be in danger, so she can kind of tweak at the threads of these different timelines to make things happen in your favor, in your benefit. Now, there have been many times in my life where my life could have ended, and through Santa Muerte, she was able to save me multiple times without me even realizing it at the moment. I found out much later. She showed me many instances where my life could have ended. Some of them were accidental, some of them were more on purpose at the hands of other people. It's kind of crazy to talk about out loud without sounding insane, but I have lived a very eventful life, we'll say. And anyway, what happened was I was told that there are many instances where things could have happened to me. The most interesting part about it was when I was visited by an alternate version of myself. Now, time for us is linear. It passes day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. But outside of linear time, outside of space and time, is where the other side, the astral plane, other planes of existence, other realms, other dimensions, gods, goddesses, all these other powerful beings, they exist outside of our linear timeline, our perception of time. And there are multiple timelines that play out side by side, and they all play out at the same time. I've been shown a lot of scenes from alternate timelines, and I've been shown things that I thought were going to happen. I thought they were prophetic visions. They were not things that were meant to happen in my timeline. They were things that had played out or transpired in other timelines. And I remember one day, one of the beings I work with, who wants to remain anonymous for the time being, he ventured out and he brought back a visitor with him, and this visitor was an alternate version of me from another timeline. Now, this alternate version of me was older than I am right now. He had lived out his whole life. He was a powerful magic practitioner who was astral traveling, and he was searching through different timelines to see if he could find a version of himself, a version of me, that could benefit from his advice or his guidance. And when he was brought forward to me, he had already visited multiple different timelines, multiple different versions of me, but all of them were kind of failures, we could say. One of the versions of me was super overweight and very spoiled and lazy. Another version of me was arrested and in prison for life for ending the life of an abusive stepfather, which is crazy to say. Another version of me was already dead and gone because I had passed away at the hands of my stepfather. Another version of me had also passed away because I was ended by a malicious entity through messing with a Ouija board. In this alternate timeline, I was using a Ouija board, and whatever kind of spirit I was able to come in contact with was extremely powerful and extremely malicious, and it immediately ended my life with like a brain aneurysm, which is really intense and really crazy and kind of scary. And then there was like another version of me that just wasn't doing well in life. And basically this other me, he had visited multiple different timelines and none of them were really going well. And my guide, one of my guides, he went out and he found this version of me and he brought him back to me. And what I learned was that I was the first version of him, of me, that he had come across who wasn't necessarily failing at life, who had so much potential. And so that made him really excited. And he left me messages. I was able to have these messages written down, and he gave me, I think it was 9 or 10 pieces of advice from my future alternate self for this lifetime. And I don't know if they're all exactly private. I could read you maybe 1 or 2 pieces of advice. I don't think I'll read you all of them. Okay, so I went and grabbed my Book of Shadows, or what I'm using as a Book of Shadows at this time. So let's see. So what he said to me was, finally the celestial tapestry has unfurled. And he is a man from an alternate reality who has long since passed. I will share a few of these that are more general, but I will not share all of them because they are personal. One of them I will say that he had to tell me, and it was 12 pieces of advice. If you continue to keep waiting for the right time, then you're going to waste your entire life and nothing is going to happen. He said that I don't need self-help books or videos, and that all I needed was action and discipline. That I should not and cannot expect honesty from people who actually lie to themselves. The most difficult task on earth is to focus on your dreams. The easiest is to constantly complain. And if you're not where you want to be in your life, ask yourself why. Now, he did have other pieces of advice that were more detailed and longer and very personal, mostly relating to my upbringing. But all of this to say, alternate timelines do exist. They are a thing. And there is so much more. There's so much. I don't think Santa Muerte is a part of my life in every timeline, but she certainly has shown me that she can see into all the timelines. So I have my book I published here, or not exactly published, but I put out, and I am working on a different version with more information in it, that hopefully will be a lot cheaper because I'm not planning on making it this nice. But I have here the black, red, and white combination aspect, and this is the one that has to do with timelines. It just says, she is a weaver of timelines and knows how to cause the biggest butterfly effect through the smallest of actions. She watches all of the timelines and is aware of every thread of fate. She sees into a myriad of timelines, and she is aware of how each one of those timelines plays out across multiple versions of your life and the various different outcomes of those choices. The smallest choices can have the biggest effect, and she may at will bend a thread to steer events as she aids those who are devoted to her within their respective timelines. And her sight reaches distances unfathomed. So I don't know, I just find timelines and alternate timelines incredibly interesting. I used to read a lot of comic books when I was growing up, like especially Marvel comics, And in Marvel Comics, the general timeline is called Earth 616, but there's like a million other timelines like Earth 515, Earth 303, for example. There's something different about each one because they're different timelines. Like right now, there are many timelines in front of me. If I was to rob a bank today, that would put me onto a different timeline. If I was to choose to stay home, that would put me on a different timeline. If I was to choose to go on a road trip or drive to another country or something, that could put me on a different timeline. All of the choices we make, sometimes very small, can have enormous effects on our timelines. And I don't understand how they work on top of one another. I don't know if one timeline is like the main timeline and then there are just like off branches of that timeline, or if each one is just as real and solid with a version of ourselves that is experiencing life the way we're experiencing life here. I always thought of it that I'm just experiencing life, and depending on what choices I make, certain timelines that are available to me will no longer become available to me. And so they're just kind of doors that I didn't open, and I just keep going forward and forward and forward. And every step I take, there's new doors in front of me. And so every time I make a new choice, other choices are no longer available for me to make. And we can see into those choices how they would have played out, but they're no longer available. And sometimes the choices other people make affect us, right? Because other people can affect our lives just like we can affect other people's lives sometimes. And I don't mean magically, although I guess it could include that, but I mean just as we go about our day-to-day lives. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to yap a little bit about timelines and alternate timelines. And I think that potentially we can tap into or tune into our higher self, or talk to Santa Muerte directly and ask her, like, if there's a version of us that is a millionaire, or if there's a version of us who's running a successful business, or who has their dream body, or has achieved a certain level of education. Like, if there's a version of us who already has that, how did they get there? What steps did they exactly take so we can follow those steps to achieve that outcome? Can I ask my higher self for advice on how to tune into that version of myself, or to kind of embody that version of myself who is more disciplined, who's able to go to the gym every day, that version of myself who studies really hard and is able to get into the best colleges out there. And it feels like it opens the door for so many methods for self-growth and for integrating higher and alternate versions of ourselves to make our current selves better. Just thoughts I was having in my head. So thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.